The main characters conflict in Alibaba and the 40 Thieves by Richard F. Burton, an analysis of a short story by Azizah Syadid, Reysa Putri Sitepu, and Vania, Nadia, Kamila, Hasibuan. Abstract. The objective of the current study are A. To find out the type of literary conflict that occur in the main character in the short story Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. B. To identify the main characters in the short story Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. C. To analyze the conflict that occur between character in the short story Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. And D. To find out where the character conflict that occur in the short story Alibaba and the 40 Thieves are located. The scope of this research is to examine the conflict and also examine the main character in the short story, especially in the short story Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. The analysis of this research is limited to the conflicts that occur between the main players in the short story Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. This research provides many benefits about a character, especially the character's student personality is very influential in the environment and family. Knowing a person's personality can help a person in choosing an environment that suits his personality. The keyword is conflict and main character.
Literary work is a reflection of people's lives. Throughout literary works, the authors try to express the ups and downs of people's lives that they feel or experience. In addition, literary work present a portrait of life concerning social issues in society. After experiencing intensive deposition in the author's imagination, the experience of social life was formed in the form of a literary work. According to Kosasi, 2012, literature is writing or essays containing good values written in a beautiful language. Literary works in its development are divided into several types, including short stories. Short stories are one type of literary work, which is a place for pouring the author's reflections on the nature of life and life. Radovo 2012. Short stories are a type of literary work that describes stories or stories about humans and their intricacies through short writing. So, it can be concluded that short stories are types of literary works that describe stories or stories about humans and their ins and outs through short writing. A short story is built by two elements, namely extrinsic elements and intrinsic elements. Extrinsic elements are elements that are outside the literary work, but indirectly affect the building or structure of the literary work. Or more specifically, it can be said as a supporting element of a literary work story, but does not take part in it. The intrinsic elements are the elements that build the literary work itself. These elements will factually be found if people read literary work. One of them is a character. The term character refers to the person and actor of the story. Character, disposition, and character refers to the nature and attitude of the characters as interpreted by the reader. Characterization refers to the personal qualities of a character. The presence of the characters plays a role in bringing the story to life. It's hard to imagine an event will happen without the presence of the characters. Sumarjo and Saini, 1986-64, say that the quality of a short story is largely determined by the ability of the author to bring the characters to life. If the characters are weak, then the whole story is weak. In this study, we will examine the main characters contained in the short story Alibaba and 40 Thieves. The reason we chose this short story is because it tells the story of the protagonist named Alibaba as a male character who makes the atmosphere of the story alive. The author is able to describe characters with unique and interesting characters from various storytelling techniques. Problems of the study. First, what literary conflict happened to the main character in the short story Alibaba and the 40 Thieves? Second, how are the character of main character in the short story Alibaba and the 40 Thieves? Third, why does conflict occur between characters in the short story Alibaba and the 40 Thieves? And the last, fourth, where the conflict of the Alibaba and the 40 Thieves happen. Objective of the study. First, to find out the type of literary conflict that occurs in the main character in the short story Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. Second, to identify the main characters in the short story Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. Third, to analyze the conflicts that occur between characters in the short story Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. And fourth, to find out where the character conflicts that occur in the story Alibaba and the 40 Thieves are located. Significance of the study. This research provides many benefits about a character, especially the character's talent. Personality is very influential in the environment and family. Knowing a person's personality can help a person in choosing an environment that suits his personality. Scope of the study. The scope of this research is to examine the conflict and also examine the main character in the short story, especially in the short story of Alibaba and 40 Thieves. The analysis of this research is limited to the conflicts that occur between the main players in the short story Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. 2. Research methods. Collecting the data. The researcher collect all data from the internet, access and download them, and then read them intensively. The researcher chose the tale Alibaba and the 40 Thieves as the data will be analyzed. Analyzing data. In this step, the researcher more focused on the data that have been gathered and analyze them. Firstly, the researcher read the whole both text and look for the intrinsic of the tale, such as characters, setting, and so on. After that, the researcher noting the differences within both texts.
Okay, the next part it will be explained by me. My name is Azizah Syadid. I will explain about discussion and research. So, the data of result is a definition of the character and characteristic of the story Alibaba and 40 Thieves. Characters are those who take on a role in a story, and characteristic is that character is a trait that affects the thought, behavior, character, and characters of human or other living things in the story. Some of the characters and traits that are in the Alibaba story. Alibaba, he is a simple man who lives with his wife. He is a good person and willing to help others, and his nature that lives with simplicity is the main character in him. Alibaba's wife, she is a good wife who always accepts a simple life with her husband, likes to help others, and she rarely complains to her husband. Alibaba's brother, Kasim, is a different person from Alibaba itself, which is the main character in the story. Kasim is a rich person who is looked at, but he has the character of greedy person. He himself was already rich. However, he still wanted to steal the treasure of the robbers to enrich and boast of himself. Kasim's wife, her character is not too much different from her husband. He is always suspicious, like to belie other people, and is a mercenary. Even his wife was when her husband died at that time. Alibaba and his wife tried to comfort the aunt's wife, but to not avail. Alibaba gave a bag of gold to Kasim's wife. The woman then stopped crying and smiled when she received it. It seems she had forgotten that her husband had just died. Absolutely outrageous. Thieves or robbers. The 40 thieves were cruel and unforgiving people, and they are also important characters in the story of Alibaba. And finally, there Morgana. She knows how to repay the favor. B. Explanation of short story Alibaba as a literary work. Alibaba and 40 Thieves is a folktale added to 1001 Night in the 18th century by his French translator Antoine Galland, who heard it from the marionette storyteller Nadia. As one of the best-known Arabic night tales, it has been widely retold and shown in many media, especially for children, often hiding the violent aspects of the story literature. New Arabian Nights 1882, Dunia Zadiyat 1972, Arabian Nights and Days 1979. In the original version, Alibaba in Arabic, or Baba Ali, is a poor woodcutter who discovers the secret of thieves and enters with the magical sentence, opens the same. The thieves try to kill Alibaba, but Alibaba's loyal slave girl thwarted their plans. Alibaba's son married her, and Alibaba kept the treasure secret. See to analyze the conflict between character in Alibaba and 40 Thieves in short story. Man against himself. It happened when Alibaba pitied himself for being a poor man, while his brother had a better life. Alibaba remains poor despite her working hard every day to make ends meet. Man against man. It took place when the thieves found out that someone is stealing their gold. The first was when Qasim greedily went to the cave to steal the gold. Unfortunately, he was caught and was killed. The next was when the thieves discovered that there is another person who knows about the gold. The thieves tried to kill Alibaba. Luckily, the servant girl Morgiana saved Alibaba by killing the thieves and their leader. The conflict plays a significant role in the story. However, there are other kinds of external conflict. It can also occur because of other characters, acts of nature, or society itself. To know where the conflict of the story Alibaba in 40 Thieves happened is to find out where the Alibaba conflict started, when it was found, namely in the cave where the gold storage belonging to the robbers was located far from the residential area, hidden behind the hills. What is clear is that the thieves are looking for locations that are not easy to find, so secret. So what brings Alibaba to the secret cave of thieves? A coincidence? No. The meeting with the rogues was the coincidence sight that was made Alibaba scared and immediately went into hiding. He was startled by the sound of horses who was getting closer. He was at a dead end in front of an enormous rock hill. He also left disappointed. Not long after, the sound of galloping horses was heard approaching. Suddenly, he was surprised. Immediately, he hid among the stone. Turns out it was the thieves. Then the story continues as the story are told in general. This is where the conflict will begin, namely in a cave filled with four thieves who will start an even bigger conflict in the story. A moral follows found in Alibaba's story in everyday life. Don't be jealous and greedy like Qasim Ali's brother, because greed only causes trouble in life. Do good to others, then your kindness will one day be rewarded in a way we don't expect. Don't be a proud person. Remember, if you die, you don't bring anything to the ground. So, the next part is discussion. So, data discussion about this research was conducted to find out the type of literary conflict that occurs in the main character in the short story Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. Characters are those who take on a role in a story, and characteristic is that character is a trait that affects the thoughts, behavior, characters, and characters of human or other living things in the story. To identify the main character in the short story Alibaba and the 40 Thieves in the original version Alibaba, or in the Arabic is Baba Ali, is a poor woodcutter who discovers the secret of a thief and enters with the magical sentence, opens the same. The thieves tried to kill Alibaba, but Alibaba's loyal slave girl thwarted their plans. Alibaba's son married her, and Alibaba kept the treasure secret. To analyze the conflicts that occur between characters in the short story, Alibaba and the 40 Thieves, man against himself, man against man, and the conflict plays a significant role in the story. However, there are other kinds of external conflict. It can also occur because of other characters, acts of nature, or society itself. To find out where the character conflicts that occur in the story Alibaba and the 40 Thieves are located, to find out where the Alibaba conflict started, where it was found, namely in the cave where the gold storage belonging to the robbers was located far from the residential area, hidden behind the hills. This research provides many benefits about a character, especially the character student. Personality is very influential in the environment and family. Knowing a person's personality can help a person in choosing an environment that suits his personality. Theoretical framework in this paper is to contain external variables, summarize of concept literature, theories that can support research. The theoretical framework in explanatory research will help researchers as a basis for research. This is because the theoretical framework can determine the purpose and direction of the research with the right concept to form a hypothesis. So in this short story, Alibaba and the 40 Thieves, we use an explanatory theoretical framework. Alibaba and the 40 Thieves, Arabian Nights. Authors from the Arabian Nights, written by Richard Burton and Mary P. Crow. In this short story, we explain starting from the character, nature, conflict, the place when the location is happen. Conflict occurs literature, and of course moral value. Here we describe and explain the literature review related to the explanatory theory framework.
5. Conclusion. Analyzed in the context of the frame story, the characterization provides an interesting comment on Scheherazad's missions. The narrative involves a woman earning respect through her natural abilities in the same way Scheherazade wants to do for herself and her peers through her storytelling. Even more intriguing is the performative aspect of the story, almost cinematic in the way Morgiana integrates a sensual dance into a scheme that finally solves the story's central conflict. Scheherazade, too, is attempting to bring stasis to a troubling situation through art. On the other hand, from Morgiana, Alibaba, the namesake of the story, is unutterable. His first minor slip comes in inadvertently allowing his brother and his wife to discover his possession of gold, which leads to the whole issues in the first place. Of course, the story presents his flaw as trusting his wife, an interesting contradictions. Worse, he is fooled twice by the robber captain, in two different districts. Both times, Alibaba ignorantly invites the impostor into his house. The researchers hope that this research can provide other benefits for future researchers who are interested in researching the conflict of the other main characters of the short story and can improve knowledge in analyzed literary work. 6. Acknowledgement. The authors wish to say thank you to Universitas Negeri Medan and our lecturer Ma'am Rita Hartati SSM Hum because of the support to make this paper. Thank you.